All right, so from two evil dictators to two humanitarian crises, we're just connecting some historical dots here, but we should talk about this a little deeper. There is one man who calls what's happening in Libya, quote, a bad science fiction movie written by mad political scientists. That man is Gerald Celente, the publisher of the Trends Journal and director of the Trends Research Institute. All right, Gerald, part of what you and your friends at the Trends Research Institute do is make predictions. And I know you recently wrote, "The first great war of the 21st century has begun," making a prediction of sorts about what's going on in Libya. Now, we just showed a report comparing Libya to the former Yugoslavia exactly 12 years ago. What do you make of all this?
Well, it just keeps going on and on. Any excuse that the United States has to attack another country, they just make it up. For example, what makes Gaddafi so different than the dictator in Yemen? I'll give you an example of the hypocrisy. On the same day that Obama announced that we were going to go into Libya, some 50 people were killed in Yemen. I didn't hear about the overthrow in that, for that government. The same day, the United States sent in a Predator drone missile into Pakistan, if you want to talk about brutality, and killed some 38 innocent people. They missed, I guess, those suspected militant targets that they hit so infrequently. So all this is the United States doing what it's become accustomed to do, and that is attack any country it wants to at any time for any reason that it could make up. And the new reason that they made up is perfectly Orwellian: humanitarian crisis. So you kill people to solve a humanitarian crisis, and you take dictators out that you don't like, because really, what's behind this? And I've said it before. Would the United States be in Iraq if their major export was broccoli? Or would they be in Libya if they weren't holding on to the sweetest of sweet crude oil on the planet?
And, Gerald, we should mention, we've been following some new developments. They're happening as we speak. Reports that NATO forces will, in fact, take command of the mission in Libya. But I got to point out here, whether or not that does happen in the coming minutes or hours, the negotiations have been a little hairy. Still some major differences in principle between NATO members. And I also want to show sort of what we've been seeing leading up to this point, some blatant finger-pointing, much of it from Turkey to France. Now, here's a quote from Turkey's Prime Minister saying the following: "I wish that those who only see oil, gold mines, and underground treasures when they look in Libya's direction would see the region through glasses of conscience from now on." Sort of playing, Gerald, to what you were just talking about. What do you make of this, and also of, what's happening next there?
NATO's a code word for the United States. They've changed the language. Every time you read in the New York Times or any of these other so-called papers of record, when people get killed or there are strikes in Afghanistan that kill innocent people, they always use the term NATO. It's mostly the U.S. And yes, the Prime Minister of Turkey is 100% correct. Again, the hypocrisy is before our very own eyes. Look what's going on in the Ivory Coast as we speak. Look what's going on in the Sudan as we speak. Look what's going on in Bahrain, where the Fifth Fleet happens to be as we speak. You don't hear Hillary Clinton saying we have to take out those tyrants. No, it's about the bottom line, and that's all it's ever about. It's not about a humanitarian crisis. And besides that, it's a civil war, and it's none of the United States' business. Here, they're talking about, the Republicans and the Democrats, about balancing the budget in the U.S. as they're just blowing away probably $1 billion in a week bombing another country. How about fixing up Detroit, whose population has declined from 2 million to about 700,000? How about fixing Camden? Now, this is just war, and war's a racket.
So then, Gerald, I mean, it's very easy to say everything that's wrong here, but what if you had, 5 minutes with President Obama? How would you advise him on what's going on here?
Well, it's not advising him on anything. I've made this very clear and over again. If you want to see the problems in the United States, Obama's part of it. It's called Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. These are the people that run the country. And I'm not making this up as rhetoric. Take a look at the Supreme Court. Oh, really supreme, isn't it? Harvard and Yale. You look at Wall Street. You look at the people in the administration and the administration before that and before that. So that's what's going on. And these are the people that are in charge. Who's the head of the Federal Reserve? Oh, a Princeton man. No, this is all it is. They're members of the club, and this is the dirty business that the club does.
Switching gears here, Gerald, I want to talk about sales of new homes. A report came out recently that shows last month they fell. Sales of new homes fell to the lowest level on record, dating back nearly 50 years. You know, I really thought things were supposed to be getting better on the housing front.
Let's look at the housing front. What propped it up the last time? Remember they gave that $8,000, $10,000 tax break to home buyers, and then they made it to anybody. First it was first time. And then look who's supporting all of this. It's we, the people of the United States. We're backing all the loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the FHA. So no, this is only a temporary boost. We said this from the beginning. When the money game would run out, the real estate market and the rest of the economy would collapse. And that's what we're seeing. And let's not forget that the boom that happened because of the fake money, that digital money printed out of thin air, when they lowered interest rates to 46-year lows beginning in 2001, it fueled the housing boom. That's what the recovery was all about.
Well, let me ask you this, Gerald.
Isn't happening.
Obviously, this report, an official report, but I'm wondering, do you have any take on why, you know, where I live here in D.C., there doesn't seem to be as much of a issue with new home sales?
Yeah, well, you live in D.C. I mean, that's the government. That's where they create jobs. You look at the decline in federal jobs since, what, about 8 million have been lost since the Great Recession began. There's hardly been any decline at all. So that's the business of government, is to build more federal government. That's why housing prices are stable there. Hey, take a trip to Cincinnati. You'll have a lovely time in Las Vegas. So that's where your collapses are happening.
All right, Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal and director of the Trends Research Institute.